Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode where I get to basically hang out with some of my learned colleagues and friends and pick their brains and hopefully showcase their genius. I'm delighted today to have Dr. Sandra Hilton. Let's give her full title. Sandy and I have known each other for years, and I've been following her work. She's one of the most generous people that I know in terms of sharing advice and knowledge. She's written some incredible papers. We'll talk about her fantastic book later on. And she's also one of the most forthright people I know, who does not suffer fools gladly. So I think it's great because, you know what, I just think telling it like it is, but embracing all that's good and noble in science and really trying to make it clinically applicable, because so many times, I don't know about you, Sandy, but I read a paper and, you know, the nerdy part of me takes over, but it's like, okay, so, but how's that going to change my practice, or how's that going to affect how I deal with the outside world? So I really wanted to talk to Sandy today about pelvic pain, because she's one of the luminaries, I think, in that field, and very active in doing some myth busting and spreading some truth bombs out there. So, Sandy, do you want to just maybe jump and introduce yourself, a little bit of your background, where you're from, how did you get here? Tell us all about you.
All about me. Thanks, Michelle. Michelle, I'll give you all those compliments right back. I love reading everything you write, but the first time I heard you speak, because I have this, some people write so exquisitely well, and then they read it when they speak, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to keep reading you, because it's that presence of presentation. And I heard you speak the first time. I'm like, well, she has it all, because you speak really well and you write really well. So there's my.
It's the company I keep.
Nicely done. No, really fun. So how did I get here? I got hooked in physical therapy in general on a bike ride with my brother when he was in pre-med, and he was using me to study anatomy. Absolutely fascinated that it's just Latin for where the muscle is or what it does or its shape. And we had just so many giggles about lift the shoulder blade and, you know, all the names for muscles, if you call them in by that in their Latin, are kind of funny. So that's how I got hooked on anatomy and how things move. And we were on a bike ride, so we were talking about how everything worked for bike riding, and I was just fascinated. Into the world of pain, that took me some while longer, because my first love in therapy was neuro. Yeah. And I was going to work with strokes and head injuries and spinal cord injury.
Wow.
And the people, of course, that are affected with those, but that was my main focus. And then I married an Army guy and moved all over the place, and it's kind of hard to find really good neuro centers to work in. So I ended up in orthopedics, and then through the nudging of a very kind farmer focused healthcare provider that also worked with loggers out in the woods in Oregon, on those big trees, the monster trees. He got me working with guys that had pelvic health issues. And so I'm kind of sideways into pelvic health world, in that most people start with women, and typically if they've had an injury with childbirth or problems, I started working with men with sexual dysfunction.
Wow.
And yeah, and had I only known Kathy Wallace was just a 3-hour drive, 5-hour drive north of me, my life would have been so much easier. But it was before internet was a thing, and I did it the hard way.
But you did it, which is
that pretty much sums up my life. I did it. But so many fun adventures along the way. And then I got into pain, because there's just sad. It makes me so sad when someone says they've hurt for 12 years and couldn't have sex, and have tried thousands of appointments and treatments and dollars, and they've just given up hope. And and I am very devastated for them, and also very happy that I have the opportunity to help. And I want to try and give hope back to people that think that because they've tried all of these things and it hasn't helped, that means that there's nothing else they can do. And I reject the idea that they've used all their options. I think
good.
Often more about the match of the right thing to the right person at the right time. And unfortunately, none of us have the magic ball about what to do with them. Not yet, and they're trying. my apologies for the background noise if you hear it. I have a very enthusiastic cat who is
who's being neglected.
Apparently. The tearing and ripping noises up from over there or something.
Don't look.
It's better not to know. So then, and I ended up at Entropy Physiotherapy in Chicago, much from that same passion of, can we just do this different? And there's frustrations in the US healthcare system where really good therapists are limited to, well, you can do an eval and then send in papers, and then we'll let you know if you can do 2 treatments, and then send in some more papers, and then maybe you can do 4 more. And that can kind of steal the fun out of both the person trying to seek care and the provider trying to give care. And it's not their fault, either of those. It's a system that's getting in the way from the care we want to give. So Sarah Haig and I ditched the system and opened Entropy Physiotherapy, and we get to provide physical therapy services.
Just for novelty.
For fun. We're just it's hard enough just trying to give good care to the people when they need it without those organizational things.
Absolutely. Well, it's great though, because then now you've got this structure that you've created where you can give the best of yourself without being drained, because, you know, I remember working in that system in the US, and the paperwork and the admin honestly would just, it's soul destroying stuff, you know, because that's your focus. How am I going to get all of this done? And you're on the phone trying to get visits. So I really applaud you striking out on your own. I think it's probably the model of the future, and more practitioners are heading down that road.
Yeah.
What I really love about your model of practice is you're able to take, you know, it's a great time to be working in pelvic health. You know, there's all this research coming out and pain neuroscience. And what I love about the way you operate, Sandy, is that you can take this very complex neuroscience, but you make it very easily applicable in a very calm way. And I think that's half the battle with a lot of the patients who are dealing with pelvic pain. So, for example, I've seen videos of you and Sarah where you incorporate things like belly dancing into, you know, pelvic neurodynamics, you know, and just getting patients enjoying themselves. So I think my question is, you know, there's a lot of talk in our world at the moment about different controversies and evolving practice models. Do you think anatomy still matters?
Yes, I think anatomy still matters.
Good.
I think still matters. I think biomechanics still matter.
Yep.
That all of that, the foundation of how we move and the timing of all of those muscles, it does matter if your glutes are turned on, because dear heavens help you if they aren't. I don't know how to, I'll steal Ben Cormack's line. I don't know how to tell if a glute is turned on. Are they winking at you? Are they? That's from Ben. Sorry, Ben. It was great. I'm stealing it.
I'm still recovering from Ben's course, so I relate completely.
It was awesome. But yes, it matters. I don't know. I mean, it matters because they're all there, and that's a Wouter Rember. I ruined his name, but that's how I do. He's in Belgium, and he said that once about pelvic pain. He's not a pelvic physio, but because of the magic of Twitter and the pelvic mafia, everyone's a pelvic physio now, whether they wanted to be or not. And he said, well, I imagine that it all matters because it's there. And when you look at the body from a systemic perspective, that they're all there. Even the little gemellis are important, and yet no one talks about them. There is not a gemelli syndrome, and we don't have gemelli butt, and there's none of that. Just don't go there.
And which gemellus matters more?
There'll be an argument. It'll be like the dress thing.
Is one called Yanni and the other one's called Laurel?
Yeah, it depends on which speaker you're hearing it out of. Which right or left hand. We could go forever. But so it does matter, but I will hopefully respectfully argue the specificity that we have to be about that, because the timing difference of when something will fire isn't something we're going to pick up with our eyes or our fingers. But it really matters to that person.
Yes.
That's how they're going to get graceful in their movement, how they're going to be able to train a muscle and then forget about it. There was just something on Facebook about if you should actively engage your pelvic floor while running. Please don't. But could you imagine? And which side? If you have to like get increased tone on the right when heel strike, but then the left is swinging, I can't organize that. It's like
I can't even think about that.
really hard enough to get motivated to go out for a run every morning. It is really hard to think right, left, right, nah. And if you get it wrong, then no, just go right. But train it and train it well and train it to confidence. Not in task, like any sport. The surest way to ruin your baseball swing, and that's what I used to do when I played catcher, is to get very particular with people about where their elbow is or where their weight is on their feet. So you know how catchers mess up the batter? I wasn't doing it by making mean comments about them or their family. I was doing it by saying your weight's too far on your right foot. You should lean your butt back. Oh man, externally rotate that left hip. And I would just, they'd be like, what? And it would ruin their swing. It was so much fun.
I'm nodding like I understand that analogy perfectly, you know, but I remember on my only kind of baseball contribution to this conversation. Have you ever seen the film Asterisk 69? It's about Roger Maris and the year, you know, he was just amazing, but it didn't count for the Hall of Fame because apparently there were extra games that year. But I remember it's a fantastic film. If you like baseball, you should watch it. But I remember the actor who was playing Mickey Mantle in the film. He interviewed for it and he got the job. He got the gig to play Mickey Mantle in this film, but he had never played baseball ever in his life. But he actually, you know, once they figured this out, you know, they'd already started filming the non-baseball parts. So it was like, oh, what are we going to do? Because you're supposed to be like one of the greatest baseball players ever. He said, I had to sell it to them that this was actually a good thing because I hadn't picked up any bad habits. I hadn't been over-analyzed to death. I could just do it. You know?
Exactly it. And we have to take our patients. So reporting bias. Yes, I'm a geeky person like that. The people who come to see me didn't get better somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, or they wouldn't, no one just shows up. Hey, Sandy, let me pay you money to come show off how good I am. That never happens.
Sadly.
Because it'd be really fun to feel normal and work with a perfectly healthy person be great. But that means that they have tried things from well-meaning professionals who have done the best at what they can do. And it wasn't the thing that was going to help that person.
Yeah.
So it's incumbent on me to listen to that and not do those things again. Maybe right away. Maybe it just wasn't the right time. Maybe something else is needed before that can really be effective. And those are important things to know. And sometimes what I have to do is unscare people.
Yes.
Who the fear that they have picked up is stopping them from doing the very thing that could help them get better.
Yeah. And having a full life as well, because I think with chronic pain, you know, the world just becomes smaller and smaller because is this going to be the thing that flares me up that I will never recover from, you know, that is going to plunge me into pain and there's no way back.
That's what Professor Google will tell you. You put in your symptoms on Google and you will hear, that's it. Don't ride a bike. Don't ever sit without your cushion. It's all these don'ts because it'll make you worse. And that's not actually how bodies work. And we get to help things be resilient again. We get to help things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's, you know, so some of the arguments that we see I suspect in some of the same circles that we swim in is that, you know, manual therapy is dead, you know, because it lacks specificity. It's, you know, manual therapy works, but not maybe for the reasons that we thought. We're not stretching fascia, you know, we're not doing things like that. But I think particularly in pelvic health, you know, I think manual therapy is still a really, really important strategy from a graded exposure point of view and a calming down the brain, reintegrating with the system point of view. But I think there's still a lot of, okay, so what's your favorite manual therapy technique for pudendal neuralgia? You know, what's the magic technique?
Pick me.
You're up.
There isn't really a favorite technique, but the one that the patient likes the best is most likely to help them.
Exactly.
So, yay. See, I love the non-specificity, and every time a study comes out that says exercise A versus exercise B don't have any significant improvement one or the other, what that means to me is I can do either of them.
Exactly. Or both.
Or both. And, and you get
which do you like to do? Do that one.
That's where the studies show they're going to do the best. And I do think manual therapy matters. I didn't plug, so I have this podcast, Pain Science and Sensibility, and we got one of my friends and colleagues who is quite not sold on manual therapy on there with Corey and I.
That's such a delicately, diplomatically correct way of putting it.
I'm trying. I'm trying to grow as a person and be a little more soft and cuddly. Or it's early. But true, and we got on there because Adam and we disagree, and we have since I met him, about manual therapy. But it comes down to the definition. Yes. Because I call manual therapy whatever I do with my hands, putting on you, whether that be sensory integration technique kind of intent, or guiding you through a movement that you're doing weird things with your body, or you don't have good proprioceptive control and you need that proprioceptive input. I bucket all of that in there, and neuromuscular rehab, and sometimes you need to understand the organizational system the therapist who's talking works in, because they'll tell you worked in the US, you have to build these codes, and they have to be these codes, and here's the definitions for these codes. So someone outside that system might wonder why you're calling it manual therapy if they would call it TheraX, or why, why are you saying I use manual therapy a lot, and they think manual therapy is just doing spinal manips, and they're like, well, that would be ridiculous. And I goes, well, if that's how I define manual therapy, it would be ridiculous, but that's not how I define it. So yeah, it's important. I think we have to touch people respectfully, with permission and full consent, and only as much as needed, and really push self-efficacy. But I'll never stop using my hands to do that. I think that there's so much power in that. Do I have to be specific with it? No, thank goodness. That means that I need to know my anatomy, and I need to know their anatomy, and that came up. And I need to know the physiology of it, but I don't have to spend my time wondering if I'm going to be on the left lateral superior fiber of a particular muscle, because we can't know that with our fingers or our eyes. We could with some technology that I don't use in the clinic, and that level of specificity probably isn't helpful for the person trying to just be able to forget about the muscles again.
Exactly, and I think also then that really promotes that external locus of control then, when we start getting super high tech and we're taking people outside of their own body to show them what's going on, instead of maybe giving them self-efficacy and agency.
Yeah, the outside, like real-time ultrasound, I think has a real role in helping someone you're saying, use this part, and they're like, what part? No, this part. And you do the tapping, and you do all the nice facilitatory techniques that don't hurt, they feel good. And you're like, this muscle, it's right here, come on, right here. And they're like, I got it. They can't see it either. And the real-time ultrasound can be really helpful for that, for them to with themselves. And then use that, and then stop using that, and get other things. And then you can come back and confirm with it. There's all kinds of neat ways.
Absolutely.
Now that are going to come down to the individual therapist's comfort. I think they're all great.
So, we hear a lot about the differences between top-down and bottom-up approaches. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the differences, the pros and the cons, and maybe some examples of how you use those two strategies with your patients.
Okay, I think it's a yes and. I think that it's so top-down would be things that are thoughts, beliefs, expectations, how we work, that probably that proprioceptive awareness would go in there. Some of my friends that study this for a living, my apologies if I blur the lines a little. So there was just a post on Facebook about what are your favorite approaches, and I put the pleasure treasure hunt idea of
love that.
6 to 7 times a day, go do some snacks of just sensual loveliness.
Just because it feels good.
Just really get into it, like the smell of your tea and how it feels drinking it, and just have one of those moments that if it was on television, they'd be using it in I'll have what she's having kind of thing. Do that, because we don't do that enough.
I agree.
Just in general. And you can get geeky. It runs the dopamine and serotonin and all the nice chemicals that are anti-inflammatory. So how amazing to turn that dial down 6 or 7 times a day. Run a little bit different stuff, find pleasure again. Because what's really hard to do when you hurt is find pleasure again. It can feel so far away. So interspersing that in just short little snacks throughout the day has that potential to anchor down that system from a a top-down anti-inflammatory, nice, happy chemical effect.
Yeah.
That's hopefully free and easy to just put into your day. That's one. I think any breathing or relaxation technique, if we're talking about pelvic issues, is another one, because it's working through the autonomic nervous system. Again, free, portable, easy. Your friends should not be saying, man, are you breathing again? You were doing that yesterday.
Still.
Breathing? Still working on just calm, relaxed breathing? Why? You know, it's stuff that fits in and is very sleek in environments.
Yeah. Well, what's nice about breathing in particular, I think, is it can be both top down and bottom up. Because
right, that's exactly where I was going. That's one of those ones that blurs the line in that you can tie that to pelvic floor sensory awareness and start pulling in this is me doing that Julie Weeds canister thing, Mary Nassery, thank you very much. The people that I've learned from along the way, and you just gather all those techniques and weave them into your treatment.
Exactly. And just
yes,
having a toolbox and then finding out what works for the person who's in front of you.
Yeah, I think of it like a Rolodex, those old things where you had to write your people's names and numbers, and it's just more ideas lets me go, oh, you hate that one. Hold on, I got 416 other ideas I can use for you. How's this?
Absolutely.
But they all do sort of the same thing.
Yes.
So, yeah, then we get that part, but then you have to also include the biology, the timing, the coordination, the proprioceptive awareness of the piece that's been bothered. We're turning down the pain response and building up fitness and robustness.
Resilience, yeah.
And not just, I know that people in pain, the first thing they want is to be out of pain. But beyond that is pleasure, and especially in the pelvic floor world. I tell the ladies that I'm seeing for dyspareunia that first we're kind of aiming for boring. But really, truly, there's pleasure on the other side of that. And
it's out there.
Yeah, it's out there, and that's where you know you get to aim for that. Even though I know right now I just don't want to hurt. And
I know.
It's like, okay, yes, and I'm going to keep it in my head that we're going to aim for that. This is also going to feel good.
Yeah, yeah. And again, just finding out, I think as well, what your patient's goals are, you know, and asking them what's meaningful for them. One of the things, you know, there are two things that I find myself quoting you a lot about. The first one is that pelvic health is just orthopedics in a cave, which, you know, classic. But the other one is that, you know, I remember hearing you talk about it's really important to be specific when you're goal setting with patients. Not like, I just want to have less pain. It's like, I want to be able to do X, Y, or Z, you know, that there's very specific things, because in that journey on chronic pain, there can be that catastrophization. I'm never going to get better. It's been here forever. It's never going to change. Yeah. But if you have specific measurable goals, it actually gives you something concrete to work towards and to break down that into bite-sized pieces and then, you know, reverse engineer it if you like.
Yeah.
Which I think, you know, again, is that perfect marriage that you were talking about of top down and bottom up, you know, which makes, you know, it's really exciting, because I think what we're taking is complex neuroscience, but, you know, breaking it down into actual real life strategies that are hopefully easy to integrate, you know.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of explaining pain. I mean, it's not like, and now here is the like little chapters in a book, and you know, it's all woven together of the whys if they want to, and do you want to know more about this? No, okay, cool, we'll go this way. So
moving on.
I just finished with a student at the clinic, and the first day he was at the clinic, he'd come from a place that was very protocol driven, and I am very principle driven, but kind of light on the protocols, and the chaos of that combination just sort of did his head in for a little bit. He got over it and can duck and weave now with that, because you know, your best plan made up, the best from your second visit with your patient, you've done all your clinical reasoning, you got it all laid out, and they come in and you say, what'd you do last week, how's it going? And your plan no longer is applicable. You have to come up with something else right then. That's just the day in a clinician.
Yeah. There are no recipes.
I love that you called it reverse engineering. That's yes. That's it. It's like, here's the goal that you told me what it was, and here's our kind of plan to get you there, and here's these lots of options with which to do it.
So
explanations we use for those options that matter.
Absolutely. Words really do matter, and just meeting people where they are on their particular journey. And it, I always used to say that, I had an old anatomy teacher 150 years ago when I was in PT school, who would always say that, a good physio is her voice and her two hands. But I really think a good physio is actually her two ears.
Yeah.
And giving patients the time to tell their story and what their vision of success would look like, instead of us assuming or presuming or imposing what we think they should be aiming for.
Right, like my comment of aiming for pleasure. There are people that truly wasn't what they were aiming for.
Yeah.
And it's clearly a bias of mine. And you can tell from my little pleasure hunts. It's like, because I don't think there's enough of that in the world.
Absolutely.
Someone else might be quite happy with it, and that's not their goal, and it's my job to know that.
Yeah.
And aim for theirs.
Exactly. Yeah. So I want to ask you a specific question, because I know pelvic neurodynamics are another of your favorite things to talk about. Pudendal neuralgia. Why is there such an air of mystery and confusion about the poor old pudendal nerve?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Loaded. It is, sorry, you guys, this is really early in the morning for me.
I have no excuse.
Bad jokes. Oh, wow. Because the effects of issues with the pelvic nerve are devastating.
Yeah.
I think that has to be said straight up front. The people that are enduring this, their lives have changed immensely. So with great compassion, I'm going to now talk about the medical system and put that over there. In part, I think because there's stuff you can do to it, and that makes it an intervention that people can get paid for. Yeah. So the injections, the surgeries, those kind of things. And then it becomes an industry. And then I think when you hurt in this region, oh, there's something I can do, let's try that. And I don't think that's nefarious. I think that's just human. And kind of supported in that system, and we have to work to get out of that. Yeah. Also, I think it's terribly unfair of all the rest of the nerves in the area to be ignored. We were talking before we started about there's pudendal neuralgia, but we don't get any other neuralgias so much. And ilioinguinal or genitofemoral neuralgia is just left right out.
It just doesn't have the same number of support groups or Google alerts, or I think pudendal neuralgia, and sciatica probably are the big rock stars of the neuralgia world, unfortunately.
But I wonder how many of that's really cluneal nerve. I mean, they're right there. The overlap's like this.
That posterior femoral cutaneous nerve just kind of getting away with all sorts of mayhem in there,
The pudendal nerve is the mantle of the neurology world. They just, no one else is invited. They don't even ask.
No.
I had to do that. It is important, and the innovation of it is clearly significant to anatomy and ear. And like we said, the people that have problems with it suffer horribly. And when we look at neurodynamics and the knowledge that we have that a nerve needs motion and blood and good space around it, and that's really important.
Yes.
So their tunnels need to be free to have it flow through, and the nerve itself needs a good blood supply. That's critically important biology. In the upper and lower extremity, we've got these great upper and lower neural tests for irritation in the pelvis, right? We do that thing, and in the pelvis we don't, because they're mostly curves, like the pudendal nerves, like this little fish hook, right? And nerves are most sensitive when they branch, go through tunnels, or pierce tissues, which pretty much describes the pelvic nerve. That's all they do. So they're really sensitive.
It's only about this long.
It goes like this, and it's only this long, and then it branches. So we get back to specificity. When the area is, all you have to do is be specific if your finger's here, but if you twist it a little to the right or left, you're on the other ones. That's and human variability and all that. And we can still do something about it. But neurodynamics for the pudendal nerve, I got to speak to one of the anatomists for one of the large anatomy books, and I asked him, we were talking neurodynamics, and I said, check me on this. And I said, I think it's pretty much squats and lunges. He's like, pretty much a squat. I suppose a lunge would have, and we got into this really geeky, what what it might change the minute tension variables on the nerve. So what your possible effect is changes in tension, and that would have more to do with the rest of the body wrapped around that nerve than the nerve itself.
Exactly. You're not just isolating the pudendal nerve and stretching it without, what else is living in there? What else are you moving? You know, in that region as well.
This little fishhook thing, because you can't get one end further from the other in there, or ilioinguinal, you can't get one end further from the other. But what we have a lot of possibilities for is changing the tension in the tissues around it. One side relative to the other, and that's whole body stuff, because you can get people that they're not crazy if they say, if I look to the left my butt hurts. They're like, well it's probably tension, and what are you doing, and is that closing down, you know? And we could try and get specific with that, or we could just believe them and then try and unhook that response.
Exactly. And you know, I think just even asking somebody the basic question, so how much are you actually moving your body during the day? Because there's a whole body attached to that pelvis, you know, and there's a brain attached to it as well. And how much are you enjoying moving? What are you doing for fun in your life?
Exactly.
You know, it comes back to pleasure.
And have you gotten into this perfect posture, perfect sitting, perfect walking? That's not how humans move. So, which is why I said, when they've gotten scared to the point where they're not doing the very thing that would help them.
Yeah.
Like, take a nice diaphragmatic breath and let your pelvic floor descend. And they're like, I can't do that. And you're like, oh, see, then you've missed out that beautiful opportunity with every breath you take all day long.
Those 18 to 20,000 breaths that you have to take today.
And if changing habits takes, I don't know, someone made up the like 50,000 as a.
Oh, I've lost you there, Sandy. We're after freezing. Oh, are you back?
I'm here.
Go. Yep, you're back.
So just get started. Breathing's a great way to do that.
Yeah.
Going for a walk is a great way to do that.
Absolutely.
Because what's the neurodynamics of the pelvis while you're walking? Yes. Unless you're trying to hold an isometric contraction, right? So if you're like squeezing your glutes or squeezing your abs or squeezing your pelvic floor, you're missing out on those movement glides that just happen in normal life. Absolutely. If you've lost thoracic rotation and your hips and shoulders go the same direction all the time, you've lost some of that potential at the dorsal nerve root, you know. So it's really about getting your groove back, which is why we dance in the class and why we do silly, ridiculous, fun things with hula hoops and things. Why I have a trampoline in the clinic, because you know how many women are scared of those things just looking at them?
Yeah.
So,
it's like avert your eyes, you know, from the trampoline.
Because if I look at that trampoline, my prolapse will get worse. That can't happen.
It really can't.
So we unscare. We just unscare people, and then build that resilience back in. This is where I will say there are people who should not safely do that, and we need to know where our boundaries are, because biology does matter and our support structure does matter. There
are laws of physics.
Yeah, I can't get rid of physics, but for the most part, things are safe if we help them train to safety again.
Exactly. Yeah. Sandy, I want to just say that your book, Why Pelvic Pain Hurts, with Adrian and Carolyn, if you're working in pelvic pain, this is essential. Don't leave home without it. It's such a useful and accessible book with cool pictures in there. So that's the first thing I want to say. Where can people find you, Sandy? I know you've got an excellent podcast out there and you've got some upcoming courses. Go.
I'll be in Exeter in August 21st, 22nd, I believe, over there in England. Yay!
And is that on the Entropy website?
Entropy-physio.com.
It is very early. I'm just going to, say that. I might just put a little link at the bottom here.
It's entropy-physio.com, and we have that'll get you to the homepage. One link takes you to the patient information, and the other is professional education. Go there. Cool. It's under courses. I'm also teaching in Chicago in July, and so for which side of the pond you're on, you can come either to Chicago or to Exeter.
So check out the Entropy website, and then Sandy, I just want to give a quick shout out to your podcast with Corey Blickenstaff.
Yep, that is on iTunes. It's part of the PT Podcast Network, and it is Pain, Science, and Sensibility. We record once a month. We do the So What. So this great wonderful research has come out. It's very interesting to read. So what applicability does this have to our practice, or does it? Because some stuff is just really fun to read, but it really isn't applicable to practice.
Yeah. And also, you know, let's tear down those paywalls. Just gonna put that out there.
Wouldn't that be lovely? Yeah.
That's, you know, there's great research that you can read the abstracts of.
Yeah, but it's not enough.
I know. But that's why I think your podcast is excellent, because, you know, sometimes an abstract can be a little bit misleading, just depending on how it's phrased. And why I love your podcast is you take a deep dive and you look at, you know, confidence intervals and p-values. But then it's like, so how does this change how we think? You know?
Right. What does this even matter? The other thing I really like looking at is when people talk about effectiveness or risk, and then you get to go dig into the paper, and they're talking about relative risk, like, oh, twice as many people will have this problem, and you go look, and yeah, it went from 1 in 2,000 to 2 in 2,000. This is not this is not as sexy as you're making it sound.
It's really not that exciting.
Right? And the same thing happens with effectiveness, and you're like, yeah, no, that's not really what that paper says, but that's okay, because there's still information we can take out of that to either decide this isn't applicable, or hey, this is a way I can twist my practice just a little bit to take advantage of that one little bit, because I'll take all the one little bits I can get.
Yeah, absolutely, because for that one person, that might be the difference.
That might tip the scales. It's like, try this thing, and all of a sudden they're better, and you're like, good, that was great. I'll take
Not sure why, but okay.
I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna add it to my Rolodex for the next time.
Yeah.
Which won't help, but the time after that might. It's just the way it is.
Sandy, I want to thank you for all you do for our profession, for being a very thought-provoking physio who has been, I think, really leading the change. We've gone from a profession that really had realistically no quality research 10 or 15 years ago to a place where there is a growing body of evidence out there. And I think your analysis of what's going on out there and your discussion on social media really does a lot to lead our profession forward. So thank you. And go to Sandy's classes. That's really it. Follow her on social media, Facebook, Twitter. You know, she's out there. Check out the website. Go to Entropy Physiotherapy, but go see Sandy live. I hear good things.
Thank you. We'll have fun, and you'll do manual therapy that feels good.
It won't hurt.
It won't hurt.
All right. Thanks, Sandy. All the best.